Well, is this a treat for the senses or what? I think I'm up. I might be up. Am I up? Yeah, I think we're live. Yes. Welcome to the show, everyone. Welcome to Oram's Refugee Pride. We are celebrating LGBTQ refugees in honor of Pride Month and World Refugee Day. I am your humble host, Stephen Kojikaru, in some circles, Kojo, and in other circles, Charlize. They're now calling me Charlize Theron because I'm a young, blonde, fetching bombshell in sort of darker places. And I couldn't be more thrilled. You know, we are here to celebrate. We're also here to support Oram, and I'm here for very personal reasons because I have a bit of a connection to Oram. First of all, I feel the entire community is connected. We all want to be respected. We all want dignity. But the twist with Oram is they are on the ground. They're about safety. There are people tonight across the world, and you'll see Oram's work in Kenya, in Mexico, who are afraid to close their eyes tonight for fear of violence, murder, being thrown off roofs, criminalization of homosexuality. So that's why we're here. We want to start it on a serious note so we can have fun the rest of the show. And so you know that we're going to ask you to support that. And again, they're on the ground and helping people at safe houses and refugee places. I'm also here because Steve Roth, Executive Director of Oram, is a personal friend. And he has told me stories of being on the front lines, heart-wrenching stories that break your heart into a million pieces when you hear about how unsafe people are fighting for their lives, who just again want asylum or to be safe at a refugee camp. I'm also here as a gay man. Hey, I'm coming out of the closet. Some people never have a choice. You're out. I think some people can feel that and relate to that. I'm here because my niece and nephew are watching, unless they're on TikTok or doing 15 other things. Lily is 15. Jack is just Jack is 19, and they have. I think that their life has been enriched by having a gay uncle, or they call me Auntie Kojo. They have shown me love and acceptance and dignity and respect and safety that I've never experienced before. So we're gonna. This is, by the way, we want to be very clear. This is not the Academy Awards. All the funds are going into, this is very grassroots and very on the fly. All the funds are going to being on the ground and going to these refugee places. Of course, the talent is of Academy Award caliber. That goes without saying. So coming up in a minute, I'm going to introduce Steve Roth, but coming up in a minute, you are going to hear from LGBTQ refugees. We have some videos that will melt your heart and really educate you and really move you. The legendary Miss Richfield, 1981, a drag icon, if that's the word. I don't know what the words are anymore, but an icon. She did my makeup tonight. I thought she did it with a very light hand. And we have performances from Amy Armstrong and Fernando Gonzalez. And now is such a big moment for me, a very emotional moment. I'm going to introduce, it's my pleasure to introduce Steve Roth, the Executive Director of Oram, a personal friend and a person who is again, touched these people, touched their hearts, their lives, and personally being there in person to help them out. Hi, Steve, welcome, that was long. Hi, I'm not seeing Steve, or hearing you, but I know you're there. So we're just going to just nod, and we're just going to jump in. Tell me about Oram and the important work that you're doing. Hi, are we going back to me? Because his mic is not on. I am going to make a big executive decision and maybe toss it to a video. Alex, director extraordinaire. What do you think? Alex is in. You can just cut me off. I won't take it personally. Alex is in Toronto, and we've got Bella in Berlin, and Santiago, I believe, is here in Los Angeles. So we've got a little team. So I'm just going by my monitor. This is so exciting being on live television. I feel like Chris Cuomo, and just as hot. I'm wearing one of his personal articles now, as a matter of fact. Okay, so all I'm seeing is myself. I'm not hearing. I have no contact. I don't know if we're on the moon or at the corner of Santa Monica and San Vicente. So what I'm suggesting is that we go to a video and...
Principalmente, lo que me puso a dejar mi país es la discriminación, la homofobia, el rechazo que sufrimos toda la comunidad LGTBI en los países centroamericanos. Pues principalmente, ¿qué me da esperanza en este momento? Alcanzar mi sueño americano, por el que he venido luchando día a día, mes a mes, año con año, a través de cruzar barreras, obstáculos, enfrentarme a nuevas sociedades, enfrentarme a un país nuevo para mí. Ha sido una gran barrera. Este ha sido mi peor y principal obstáculo, pero aquí estoy, firme, de pie, para enfrentar lo que venga de ahora en adelante, todo por alcanzar mi gran sueño americano. Aquí estamos, porque este mes celebramos por todas estas mujeres fuertes, valientes y emprendedoras, que tenemos que alzar la voz para luchar por nuestros derechos, luchar por nuestros valores, para que la sociedad no nos excluya, para que la sociedad nos tome en cuenta, porque somos parte de la sociedad a nivel mundial. Somos partícipes de que este mundo siga de pie.
Hi, I believe that was Montserrat, who spoke very poignantly and beautifully about her experience. And now we have a panel who's going to talk about the Mexican problem, the Mexican refugees and asylum seekers and what they're facing. So we're going to toss to that, and let's watch the video.
Thanks, Stephen. I've been able to work with ORAM with LGBTQ refugees on the US-Mexico border, and it's been really gratifying to be involved with ORAM's work serving the most vulnerable communities. So I'm very excited to introduce to you two very special guests that are working on both sides of the US-Mexico border, both in Tijuana and in the US. Each guest is going to share with us the particular challenges for these triply marginalized communities and the critical needs the communities are facing during the times of COVID. Right, now I'd like to introduce Jaime Marin to you. Jaime is a co-founder of Jardín de las Mariposas in Tijuana, and Jaime and his mother have been working to protect and provide critical services to LGBTQ asylum seekers for over 9 years. So Jaime, thanks for being here with us. It's good to see you again. Could you please walk us through what the experience is like for LGBTQ asylum seekers as they flee their home countries and arrive in Mexican border towns like Tijuana, and as they wait for their asylum cases to be heard?
Yes, thank you so much, Annie, for the introduction. And of course, I will be glad to talk a little bit about what the experiences are, because there's a lot of challenges for our refugees and our migrants that are coming from different countries where there's a lot of stigma and discrimination against our population. A lot of our refugees and migrants that come from other parts of Mexico and other states that are violent, or included in Central America, from the Triangle Circle, from Guatemala, Salvador, and Honduras. We have received people from including from the Caribbean, and believe it or not, we receive people from Russia as well. And it's been challenged because just the ability to procure for the basic needs, which is food, sanitation, protective gear, medications, be able to provide a clean, a safe environment has been very difficult.
Thank you. So as a follow-up question, those needs are all immense in the normal situations, but how have they intensified with COVID and border closures?
Since the borders closed, a lot of the contract out work that we get from other or support from other organizations in the U.S. have been they haven't been able to provide just the services to our residents, meaning that their medications are not getting here. Our government in Mexico, our local, doesn't have the enough resources to provide for LGBT, and our residents or refugees don't have like medical services. So we have to rely on other organizations. So there's been a lot of stress on the local organizations that are doing this kind of work because of the limited funding that there is available to us.
Thank you, Jaime. Thanks for all of the work you're doing during such a urgent and critical time. So we appreciate you and your mom's work. So now I want to shift over across the border to Bambi Salcedo. Bambi is an internationally recognized activist, advocate, and community organizer for the trans community, but also to overlapping issues like migration and being LGBTQ Latina as well. So she is the president and CEO of the National Trans Latin Coalition and is based in Los Angeles. Bambi, thank you so much for being here with us today. Can you share a little bit about what the experience is like for LGBTQ asylum seekers once they're able to cross into the United States, and what are their new set of challenges that they're facing?
Bueno, primero que nada, muchísimas gracias por la oportunidad. I know that it's probably hard for people to understand what I just said, but I just obviously express my gratitude for the opportunity to be here with all of you. While at the same time, I also want to send much love and gratitude to all of the people who are tuning in and joining us for this very important cause. And to answer your question, Annie, the truth is that the work that we do as an organization, although we fight for the rights of, the LGBTQ community and many different intersections that crosses our lives, we particularly focus on supporting trans immigrants who are both in immigration detention, but also are getting out of immigration detention. And so we know that trans Latinas who are in immigration detention experience inhumane treatment. They experience isolation. Obviously, the issues range from sexual assault, sexual harassment, both from guards and people who are incarcerated with them or detained. Also, people who are HIV positive, not being able to get their medications, what they need them. And the issues are multiple. We, in some ways, become their family. Many, as Jaime stated, many individuals don't have families that they can really respond or really be there for them.
Thank you. So Bambi and Jaime, I just want to ask you one last question. In 30 seconds or less, can you tell us and tell the audience what are the most critical needs for the people you're serving right now in the times of COVID and discrimination towards the LGBTQ communities?
Well, many of our refugees arrive with serious medical conditions, including like high rates of HIV positive individuals, which means that the border is closed, which means that many of our medical volunteers or services are no longer available to us. This wonderful organization that we're invited today to participate, Oram and Allied, that has always been there for us in basic areas that we need. Our residents could be in a clean and safe environment, and they can also have some medical attention, and also they can be able to see a professional to help them with their questions, because right now with our LGBT community is having. It's a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of uncertainty of what's going to happen. Everything is changing, and the services are very limited. So this is all I have to say, Annie, for today, and I'll pass it on to Bambi. And thank you so much.
So I think what we need as a community is really immediate and emergency relief support. And so, you know, we're trying to do the best that we can, obviously, but it's really hard to support people in an emergency crisis. So it's important that we understand the repercussions, and we know that this global pandemic has set the trans movement and the trans community even further behind than we were even in 2020. So it's important that we're conscientious about that, and that we do the best that we can to uplift and support all of us, right? Not just a particular set of communities. So thank you so much for all of the work that you're doing on behalf of all of us. And we're very happy and privileged that we get to participate in this forum. So thank you.
Thank you to both Jaime. Thank you to both Jaime and Bambi for their tireless work. You've shown that there's so many different intersections among the vulnerable communities, and how you were able to work together even during a border closure to really make sure that the most vulnerable are protected. The needs are incredible as the world deals with COVID, and it really is an all hands on deck moment. If you're interested in making a donation, it will go a long way toward the work that Jaime and Bambi just shared with you. So we thank you for being alongside us, and thank you again, Bambi and Jaime, for sharing your insights and the work you do with us today. Thanks, everyone. Back over to you, Stephen.
Thanks.
Hi, thank you so much, Annie, Bambi, and Jaime. As you can hear by the video, these are very real issues. You know, HIV, COVID. Again, these people, they're describing real stories about being in peril. Annie so graciously asked me to donate. I have not been asked to be asked, as they say in the business. I'm supposed to be a lady tonight. But young Kojo, before I hit the red carpet, became a legend. I had to turn a few tricks in my day, and the dignified way was pointed at the pillow. So I'm pointing at the pillow, which I believe is somewhere on the screen, and I'm imploring you, please, please donate whatever you can so we can keep these people safe. It's really that simple. We are working on the audio of Steve Roth, the executive director of ORAM. He is so exceptional, has so much to say, and is such a class act, and I adore him. So hang in there. Steve, I'll cancel all my dates. There are many tonight. You will be heard, my brother. You will be heard. In the meantime, I have somebody absolutely delightful to introduce to you. I think we're going to the video. I'm going to the video. I'm taking charge because I am a dom. I'm alpha dom. I'm going to keep it clean. We are going to introduce you. I'm proud to introduce you, Miss Richfield, 1981. You know, that touches my heart because I was born in 1981 in a little hamlet in Romania. And she is an icon. She's a legend. No one does a saturated glow-in-the-dark lip like her. And I saw this video you're about to see, and I cried. It was very moving. So she has a heart of gold. She's lovely. Without further ado, Miss Richfield, 1981, the year of my birth.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Steve. It's Miss Richfield, 1981, and Lewis here in Richfield, Minnesota. Oh, I'm so tickled to be part of this very important organization and this wonderful event. And we have such great leadership in our organization now. And one new board member I'm so excited to introduce you to today is my friend Jody Cole. Actually, I don't know Jody, but I'm meeting her today, and I love making new friends. So Jody, hello and welcome. Oh, look at you. I'm dressed in rainbow, and you're dressed in more of a lesbian print. Yes, an animal print. And you know what? I am so excited that you joined the board. I think that is a wonderful way to spend your time helping other people. And I am looking at this beautiful. Is it a giraffe that we're going?
Giraffe.
It's a giraffe. You know, and I'm wondering, first of all, where you're calling in from.
calling from Asheville, North Carolina.
Ooh, that is a beautiful place.
It
Oh
is.
my goodness sakes. I have lots of gay friends that live there, and they say it's a wonderful place to be.
Yes, yes.
Oh, that's great. And are you living there by yourself or?
No, I have a sweetheart here. Her name is Eva Hartman.
Oh, isn't that nice? How long have you
Yeah.
been together?
5 years.
Oh my goodness sakes, 5 years
Wow.
already. And I know you're not just wearing the animal prints, but you care about the animals. And like so many of us care about the animals, but you have a whole different perspective on it, right?
I
Because you
do.
not only love the animals, but you go and you take tours of people to go look at the animals, right?
I do. Yes, yes.
Well,
I
tell
own
me
my own
about
safari
that.
company. I own a safari company and I guide safaris to East and Southern Africa. My company is Wild Rainbow African Safaris. So I've been doing it for about 15 years.
On 15 years already.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness sakes. So you care about what's going on over there. And for the last 15 years, you've been paying attention to animals and all of that. But now you've got this new cause you're working for. And how long have you been on the board? Are you brand new?
I am brand new, beginning of the year.
Oh, that's fantastic. And what a year we've had so far, right?
I know.
Oh my goodness sakes. And I know that you lead the safaris over there and you do all of that. But in that time, have you also seen the gay and lesbian and transgender and bisexual folks over there and in Africa? And have you seen how they're treated and the need that's going on over there?
I have. Oftentimes I'll have groups that want to meet the local LGBT communities. So I've had the privilege of meeting many Kenyan organizations, some that are kind of on the down low and some that are proud and gay. And then also in South Africa, many, especially in Soweto. In fact, today I almost wore my Soweto Pride t-shirt, but I thought I would go with giraffe today.
Yeah, I think you made the right decision. I think the giraffe, because I don't think someone else might have a Pride t-shirt on in Pride colors, but you were definitely the only one in a giraffe outfit. Now, why don't you take that hood off and show us your beautiful, look at you.
Here I am.
Oh, you are beautiful, Jody. And I am so excited that this is how you're spending some of your time. And I know that we have great leadership on our board. And one of the people that has been on the board for quite a while and knows so much about the organization, and I think you might know who I'm talking about, my dear friend Charlie Rounds, who is, he is the one who kind of heads it all up. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, everybody.
And
Hello.
Charlie, tell us now, Jody's new on the board. We're so excited about that, but how many board members are there?
There are 7 board members, and I am the board chair. This is my second time on the board at Aram. The organization has grown so much under our new executive director, Steve Roth. We've got new board members like Jody Cole, who is passionate about Africa and global issues, and a couple of other new board members. Ms. R, organization is really stepping up at a time of a huge need globally on LGBT refugee issues. So it's so exciting to be here today.
And I think so many of us see the news and we think, oh my word, all these things are happening, and it's just hard, it's overwhelming to know how do I get involved. And I think of you and I, Charlie, who have spent so many years traveling, also Jody in her work, but Charlie and I have worked on the cruise ship industry and the gay travel industry and resorts and so forth, traveled all over the world.
Yep.
And boy, that really opens your eyes, doesn't it? How long have you been in the travel world, Charlie? How many years?
Sure. Well, when I look at this, first of all, I went to Africa and lived in Cameroon, West Africa in 1978.
I did not know that.
Oh,
What did
yeah.
you do? How did you do that? Through who?
I was a Peace Corps volunteer. And I was a Peace Corps volunteer in 1978, and I came home in 1982. So quite a few years. So Africa means a lot to me and always has. The situation in Africa, Ms. R, is just really difficult. It's not as easy as we have it here in Richfield, right? But that put the passion in. So I've really, when I got back in 1982, which I think is 38 years ago, is when I started in the travel industry. And then I got into the gay travel industry in 1988, so a mere 32 years ago.
Oh, that's fantastic. And traveling, and I know a lot of people don't have the money sometimes to travel. but it really opens your eyes to so many different things. And when you see things happening in the world, I think sometimes we forget our LGBTQ community is global. I feel like sometimes we feel like, oh, it's just me and my neighborhood and, that's fun. Or I go to New York for Pride or something, and you forget that there's a whole world out there of LGBT people who are in all sorts of different situations, some of them not so good, right?
Yeah.
And could use our help.
I just want to touch on that, and I'm Miss R. I really appreciate that you brought that up. It is an issue right now is police violence. It's front and center for us here in the U.S. But the vast majority, especially transgender people globally, are thrown out of their countries. They have to flee police violence, and they are huddled on either our border or they're huddled in Kenya, trying to lead dignified, safe lives. And that's where Aram comes in. And at this time when we're focused on violence to communities and vulnerable communities, this is a time where Aram is stepping up, and we're going to do everything we can to help the Global LGBT Refugee Committee.
Well, how do we get involved? I know Jody joined the board, and that's so amazing. Yep. It's amazing to have someone like that with that kind of experience on the board, somebody who's been in Africa, who knows the culture and knows kind of where to get involved. How do I get involved? How do other people get involved, Charlie?
I think it's, again, thank you, Ms. R, for asking the question. We can all get involved. If you can just donate, there is a donate now button on. If you want more information to volunteer, we can constantly use volunteers no matter where you're at, especially if you are bilingual, Spanish and English, or French and English, because the number of refugees that are Spanish or French speaking from French speaking Africa. So that's a way you can get involved. Let us know. We'd love to have you. And I'm just going to turn it back to Stephen. But before I do that, thank you, Jody, for joining the board. And thank you, Miss R, just for everything that you do every day for the global LGBT community. You're a gift. Thank you.
Field, you are amazing.
All of you. Thank you so much, Jody. Thanks, Charlie.
Happy Pride.
Mwah.
Happy Pride.
Bye.
Wow, bravo, thank you. That was extraordinary. Again, so moving, learning a lot. And now, without further ado, I mean, this is now the intro of the century. I have introduced Madonna, I've introduced J-Lo, Justin Bieber. I could go on, and I will. But this is the introduction of a lifetime. Ladies and gentlemen, we've resolved the audio issues, and I present to you right now the executive director of Aram and my friend, Mr. Steve Roth. Hi, Steve. Are you up?
Wow, the drama. Well, I just want you all to know that we did that on purpose. We wanted you to know that this is really a live event with all of the little hiccups and challenges. No, seriously, believe me, that was not planned. As you can see, I'm now on my iPhone because the microphone on my laptop picked a good time to crap out. But anyway, here we are, and I'm so glad to be here. And Stephen, you're just incredible. Thank you so much this is why we paid the big bucks to bring you on tonight to keep things going so smoothly amidst that. But no, on a serious note, thank you for being here. Thank you for keeping the show going so well. And it's just what I was trying to say before, before the little technical difficulty was that we are living in some really interesting times. I mean, in the midst of incredible racial justice upheaval and long overdue calls for justice. We get a huge landmark Supreme Court ruling in favor of LGBTQ equality, and yet in the very same week, a young lesbian refugee from Egypt commits suicide in Canada because the torture and the trauma is too much for her. And it's again, this is all against the backdrop of a global pandemic. So we're living in an interesting time. But as you've said so eloquently earlier, Stephen, and some of our other speakers now have pointed out, it's just even as we make progress in this country, there's still so much to be done around the world where being gay and trans is criminalized in 70 countries, and it's no more difficult for anyone than LGBTQ refugees, who are really the most marginalized among marginalized folks. So I'm really glad to be here, and yeah, thank you for welcoming me.
Wow. So well put, Steve. Thank you. I feel like it's like a war correspondent because all these things are happening. It's very Anderson Cooper, Andy Cohen. I am taking the Anderson Cooper role. I mean, come on. You've told us a lot from the get-go. So tell me what the biggest challenges are day to day for ORM and yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, ORM, we were founded 12 years ago to help LGBTQ refugees and asylum seekers really lead safe and empowered lives. And we work specifically with refugees in what we call transit countries. So these are places after they've left their country of origin. Usually they're fleeing for their lives, definitely on a well-founded fear of persecution. But it's before they've reached a resettlement country like the US or Canada or Western Europe. So we're talking places like Turkey or Kenya, or Mexico, places usually near to some really horrible, difficult places for LGBT people, but where they've yet to get to safety. And so we work in two ways. We try to both help them where they are, live a better, safer, healthier, more fulfilling lives. We do that in a lot of different ways. We've been building some livelihoods programs, supporting livelihoods programs in Kenya. We just helped launch the first LGBTQ refugee-led soap making business in a refugee camp in northern Kenya. We've also helped people get where they're going on their journey to safety. And so along that lines, we just launched a new legal program in Tijuana, Mexico, where we work with LGBT asylum seekers like Montserrat, you heard earlier, make compelling asylum cases as they try to reach safety in the US and other countries. So, in terms of some of the other challenges, the CEO of our parent organization, Alight, has a way of saying that works really well, and I'll just repeat it here. He says that it's being a refugee is like a horribly difficult thing to be anywhere in the world. You're usually fleeing, conflict and death and other threats, and at the same time, being LGBTQ is extremely difficult as well, particularly if you are in certain parts of the world, whether it's the Middle East or Africa, parts of Latin America or Eastern Europe. But being both at the same time, a refugee and LGBTQ, is kind of an impossible task. And so, we're here to help and support those people. The other thing is that the asylum system is not really geared for LGBT people. Most refugees, they flee with their families or other people from their communities. But LGBTQ people those are the people they're trying to get away from, the people that are trying to hurt them. So we really have to help create infrastructures for them and work with organizations on the ground that are doing that. And then finally, on top of all this has been COVID-19 and all the challenges that has presented from health and safety, and the fact that these people, that if you're a refugee, it's really hard to social distance. You may not even have access to running water, let alone the chance to wash your hands. So, there's a huge need and a lot that we've been able to do to support those folks.
Well, thank you. Who are some of the beneficiaries of the ORM who inspire you every day? And you can also talk about, please, here. I want to hear about you being in Kenya and what you see and what inspires you. And you've also been, I know, Mexico. We've talked about it. So tell me about the inspiration.
Yeah.
Inspirational work.
Thank you very much. That is really, I think what keeps us all doing the work that we do is the people that we serve, and they are really inspiring people. And one of the first things I did when I started last year was get out into the field to meet these people, the people that we serve, and get to know their stories. And one of the ones that I'm still in touch with to this day and communicate with regularly is a young trans woman from Uganda named Vanilla in Nairobi. And she's, if you can imagine, it's hard, I challenge you to imagine anything more difficult than being a transgender woman from Uganda, trying to eke out a life in Nairobi, Kenya. Yet she is, she's kind of the mother hen of the safe house that she lives in, which is a house of other trans refugees. And against all odds, she really takes care of them, looks after them. She hustles to get, what she needs to keep everyone safe and keep the rent paid and food on the table. And she does it all with this amazing sense of humor. And she's just a character. And I remember telling her that towards the end of our visit, I said, Vanilla, you need to write a book someday. And she said, honey, you're like the 5th person who's told me that. So she's one of the people I think of. I also think of Marjorie, who's another young trans woman from Guatemala who lives at El Jardín Jaime shelter in Mexico. And she's a very different person. She's very quiet and demure, but there's kind of this passion that she has as well. I mean, the commitment to authenticity that these folks have, to go through these journeys and really go through hell just to try to get to safety, but to be able to live their authentic lives and be who they are, it's so inspiring. And she's constantly looking for ways to help others as well. So she's someone else who inspires me. And one of the things that I've just taken away from the work that's really great is just the fact that, you know, almost all these folks are escaping, you know, families that are trying to hurt them or kill them. And so what happens, they're without families, without support systems. And we've seen the most amazing kind of chosen families pop up and build up around each other, whether it's on the border in Tijuana or in, you know, in Nairobi or in Kakuma in Kenya or in Athens, Greece. And it's just really inspiring. And so it's truly a privilege to be able to do this work.
Thank you, Steve. And finally, how can people get involved? How can they support? How can we help?
Yeah, thank you for asking. First of all, I just want to thank everyone who is here tonight, both with us and who's made a contribution already to support our work. It's incredible. You know, we couldn't do without you. If you want to help us expand some of these programs that I've talked about, the livelihoods programs or our legal program on the border, our emergency response work, you can certainly make a contribution. I've just got some good news. Our board decided this week to do a match of $5,500. So anything that you donate this evening will go towards that match. We of course want to take advantage of it, so please help us reach that goal. Like Charlie said, we also, you know, welcome volunteers, particularly in areas like communications and research, or anyone that has legal experience. If you're interested in volunteering, we'll chat an email address in the chat. You can email us there, and of course, just you know, help us spread the word about LGBTQ refugees. You know, I think a lot of people in our community don't even think about this kind of hidden segment of our population, but let people know about LGBTQ refugees and about ORAM and our partners and our work. We'll post our social media handles in the chat, so you can do that. And hopefully you're engaging with us throughout the show in the chat function as well. I haven't been able to look because I had technical difficulties, but I will check in on that, and we'd love to hear your questions and input. So again, thank you all for being here. Kojo, thank you for just being a rock star, and look forward to checking in with you later.
Thank you. The very intelligent and single Steve Roth will be back at the end of the show, where he's going to close the show with me. We're going to kind of do a co-host thing. Maybe, you know, I like my references. Maybe it'll be like an Anne Hathaway, James Franco Oscar thing. I'll take Anne Frank. Anne Frank. Wow. I don't know where that one came from. Maybe because I'm a nice Jewish boy. Okay. Moving along to something more serious, I'm going to present to you now a video with ORAM board member Celeste Berry, and she's going to talk to Ninos, who is Iraqi, I believe, and ORAM helped him complete the asylum. This shows ORAM's work and how successful they've been when you have a refugee who's in physical danger, and Ninos will talk more about that. And this is a success story, is what I'm trying to say. So now we're going to go to the video.
Thank you, Stephen, and I'm thrilled to be here to support the important work of ORAM. As I was handing off my baby of Out and Equal, I had the opportunity to do a lot of traveling, including going to Greece, where I had an opportunity to work with refugees there in Lesbos, and had a chance to meet with Safe Place International that are supporting LGBTQ refugees. And not much after that, realized that my former colleague at Out and Equal, Steve Roth, is now the executive director of ORAM. And of course, I couldn't say no when he invited me to be part of the board. So I'm thrilled to be supporting this important work of LGBTQ refugees and ORAM, and in many cases, the most vulnerable people within our community. So I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm also thrilled to introduce to you Ninos, who is a refugee and now lives in Toronto, Canada. Welcome, Ninos. Ninos, could you talk a little bit about where you're from, why you left your country, and some of your journey bringing you to Canada?
Okay, I'm an Iraqi from Iraq. I left my country because I well-founded fear of persecution because I am a gay, and my fear is objectively well-founded based on violent systematic persecution of LGBTI person from militias and ISIS, also from the government itself. So I fled to Turkey. From Turkey, start my journey as being refugee. Then I now settled in Canada.
And how did ORAM help you on this journey?
ORAM did help me through my journey. They helped me to make a decision, whatever, where, how to proceed. And before starting my journey, they give me like legal advice, and they also submit a letter for me on my behalf to UNHCR, which is speed up the process for the resettlement.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about your first impressions of being in Canada and how your adjustment went? Was it what you imagined it would be?
I found this to be a little scary at first, but after a few social events, I grew up confident, and I was very amazed by the diversity in Toronto. And the mistake that migrants make to use standards created by the receiving community or receiving society is a measure as a way to measure the level of integration among newcomers when migrants are expected to become a Canadian directly from the first day. This is I mean, that's where does they that they live in identity, and for I was it wasn't like I imagined at first, but it was better, and it's great.
Wonderful.
Sorry,
Wonderful.
I'm not
Maybe that's overstating it, but do you want to talk about your workplace and any difficulty getting a job when you first moved to Canada?
Yeah, this was the main issue. Before I came to Canada, it's like everyone say that you will find job easily, you will get job easily. That doesn't happen. And they say the government will help you. The government does not arrange a job for anyone. And they have programs that will help you to find a job. But this program will not get job. And there's a lot of people just tell you will find you a job. They are selling things, but you will not find a job. After a while, you will find yourself without money, without a job. And there are many parts of job search that you may be different than that I used to do in my home country, and searching for a job in for me. So I had to do like entry level jobs. So then I have to get study also, I have to get license, then I have to start a job in my field. So anyone thought that to find a job in a new country is not easy.
Well, Ninos, I so appreciate you spending time with us. You are such a brave person I know that challenges that you have faced have been significant, and your English is fabulous, and I'm so happy that you've landed in Toronto. But I want to continue to support you, and thank you for being part of this important conversation and supporting ORAM.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ninos.
Am I up? I think I am. Hello. Thank you, Celise and Ninos. I'm so thrilled. I think most of you watching would be are so thrilled that Ninos is safe and in Canada. And I'm actually Canadian, so that really warms the cockles of my heart. I was kicked out of Canada 10, 20 years ago. I think I said something inappropriate to Justin Trudeau. But I'd like to think in people's hearts I'm still the First Lady of Canada. Okay. You saw what a success story Ninos is. It gives me great pleasure to tell you that we have raised maybe almost $9,000. We want to get to $10,000 before the end of the broadcast. Our goal is 15. I am asking you, pleading with you, please, whatever you can do, there's a linky link, and contribute, help these people, the Ninoses of the world, all the people that you've seen in Kenya and Mexico and the four corners of the world who are literally, need to get out of physical danger. And if you want, my scarf is Fendi, and I will donate it to the cause, and maybe Steve Roth will personally deliver it to you. So there's so much possibility here. All right, we are now going to go to our next video, donate, contribute, and we are going to hear from Charles. We're going to go to North Africa, and we're going to hear from Charles, North America. We're going to hear from Charles in Nairobi. Maybe I shouldn't read. I'm like a supermodel. I'm better just using puppets. Okay, let's go to the video.
Thank you again. I wanted to say thank you for what ORAM has done for our community so far during this crisis. And the biggest source of stress for us has been not knowing where the next source of our meal is going to come from, where we're going to get the rent for their safe house, and also for some of our members who live at their satellite houses. So, and having resources like the sanitizers to take care of our household and the prevention of COVID. Besides that, we remain strong, and we've been trying to support each other by, gathering on social media to support each other, remind each other sources of food and solutions, sharing with each other what we've got. But we have united more than ever before, and we hope this whole COVID ends pretty soon, and we can continue with our processes to seek resettlement or relocation or asylum, whatever process we're involved with. At the end of the day, we'll be very fortunate to have organizations such as ORAM, Alight, step in. We know for sure we're not alone. We are part of the global family that has been going through this lifestyle of being marginalized and stigmatized, but we're protecting each other, and we're working with quality people who are also able to send us some information about other possibilities. So we're grateful for that we're not alone, that the international community has actually been keeping tabs on us, and we get peace from that. Thank you.
Yes, here I am. Thank you for those very powerful words, Charles. Well, up next is ORAM board member Charlie Rounds, and he's with a Kenya-focused, they're going to have a Kenya-focused conversation about LGBTQ asylum seekers in Kukuma. Let's roll the video. Shut up, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen, very much. It's good to be back. We have really an exceptional panel of three people that I know you're going to want to hear from about the current situation of LGBTI asylum seekers and refugees in Kenya, both in an urban setting in Nairobi and in the Kakuma refugee camp. So there are going to be links to all of the organizations up on your screen so you can get more information about the organizations. And the first person that I would very much like to welcome is Craig Paris from the Refugee Coalition of East Africa. Hey, Craig, welcome. Craig, hi, could you please, could you give us an update of the struggles right now of LGBTI refugees in Nairobi, and especially around COVID-19?
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. Thank you for having me. I'm Craig, and I work for Refugee Coalition of East Africa, REFCIA for short. We are an umbrella organization that unites several groups for LGBTI refugees who are seeking asylum or are waiting for their resettlement here in Kenya, both in Nairobi and in Kakuma. And in Nairobi, we have about 400 LGBTI refugees and about 300 LGBTI identifying refugees in Kakuma. So with COVID and the pandemic around the world, obviously the effects reached us here. And because of the isolation, the restriction with the government and everything in between, because of the virus, we've been forced to live alone. People are isolated, they are affected psychologically. The hikes in food because of the socio-economic effects of COVID have affected us also. People are finding it very hard to get food, and even the little food is so expensive. Also, the medical scene is not good. We are glad that we haven't had any case yet in the community, but everywhere else around in the country, the pandemic is still on, and the LGBTI community is really finding it very hard to survive. So I implore anyone who can donate, who can help us with something, because right now people need food, people lack food, people need medication, people need COVID gear to help them with preventing COVID, but we lack all that. People are isolated psychologically, people are traumatized. They feel so alone. I myself feel alone, and I can't imagine what someone who is in Kakuma, isolated and just discriminated upon their sexuality and gender identity is going through. In Kakuma right now, because of the chaos around COVID, the LGBT refugees are being assaulted every day. They're being cut, they're being hacked, they're being beaten up by homophobic refugees in the camp. So I beg everyone else who can help us to come around. And we thank you very much for having our voice here. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Craig, very much. It's great.
Hello,
to see you,
everyone.
my very good friend. What's life like today,
Yes.
right now in Kakuma?
Just behind me here is the fence that separates the host community and the Kakuma refugee camp. So down here is the camp. Back to the question, how is life of refugees, especially LGBTI refugees in Kakuma? The situation is really not good. And having interacted with so many LGBTI asylum seekers in Kakuma, there is no decision in life as hard as somebody deciding to cross a border and go into a refugee camp. It's one of the most difficult decisions I have come to realize in this world. It's even worse than people who commit murder. But what is life when you cross the border, you take all that risk, come into a refugee camp where the situation is terrible. There are so many homophobic people. People are being killed. People are being beaten right into your eyes. I am not a refugee, but I'm a human rights activist in the northern part of Kenya. But I see a lot of inhuman activities targeted towards LGBT asylum seekers in the Kakuma refugee camp. How is the situation with asylum seeking and the COVID-19? Most of LGBT asylum seekers, because of fear of being killed, because of fear of being beaten, most of them have decided as a coping mechanism to stay in large groups for protection purposes. What does this one mean with the government directives on social distancing? It's becoming very difficult, but we really thank ORAM as an organization and MOSIA, a human rights-based organization in Minneapolis, who are beginning to support small-scale enterprise businesses here in the camp so that refugees are not just able to earn a living, but they are able to at least get something to be able to start sustaining themselves, buying tents for themselves, and moving to stay alone in different places. Life is not easy, especially at this COVID-19 period where there are so many restrictions where people have very limited opportunities to earn, to explore, and be who they are, and on top of it, fear of being attacked. So that is basically the situation here in the camp. It's not a good situation, and anybody who can support ORAM or MOSIA to continue supporting the work that they are doing here in the camp is much welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. And there's great information on the exceptional soap making business that you've got going up there. And I think our listeners, if you get a chance, is to take a look at that work. It's great. Jamie, where are you, my good friend? There you are. Jamie, such a great leader you are, and you've done so much work. Tell us about the work Alight's doing in Kenya right now for LGBTI refugee and asylum seekers.
Thanks so much, Charlie. So we have been working in Kenya with the LGBTIQ community for the last year and a half. We began working following a homophobic attack in Kakuma refugee camp in December of 2018. And this attack was so serious, and I know everyone was working on this closely, that 194 individuals were moved from Kakuma to Nairobi. And we'd been observing the community and the advocacy they've been doing, and we knew that that was the time where we had to act. So we launched an emergency response. And when we got there, we saw what can only be described as unparalleled levels of human suffering. We saw people struggling for food. We saw people facing homelessness every month because they couldn't pay the rent. But more than that, we saw unbelievable people like Craig and other leaders who, faced with abuse and marginalization, just showed up as pure light and pure positivity and worked not only to protect themselves, but also to protect the wider community. So we have been working very closely with Craig and the other leaders for the last year and a half. We've been meeting basic needs along with ORAM, providing food and housing assistance. But we know that providing food doesn't help you create a life of value, meaning, and purpose. So we've also been thinking sustainably. We've been supporting local businesses like a jewelry business, a rabbit farm, and we have also been supporting CBOs. So I work very closely with Craig, and we provided some trainings to the community leaders, and we have also provided assistance reviewing grant proposals as well. And right now we've launched a COVID-19 emergency response. So with ORAM, we've been providing food, we're providing soap and sanitizer, addressing some of the needs which Craig said, but there's definitely a lot more which needs to be done.
Thank you, Jamie, and I'm going to welcome all three of you back. Please, everybody, there is a donate now button on your screens. There is more information on these three vitally important organizations. I'm going to close this with, I have been fortunate to be in Kakuma, in Nairobi, and meet with actual LGBTI refugee and asylum seekers. These three organizations are delivering. Many times when we donate, we don't know where that money's going or if the work's going to get done. It's getting done. These three people are getting done. They are helping real humans try to lead the best lives they can in extremely difficult situations. So thank you all, and I'm going to turn it back to Stephen. So goodbye from all over the world, and thank you all for donating and being here today with us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow, thank you for that panel. That was extraordinary. Thank you. We are in the final stretch of the show. And we're going to go to a video now. We're going to hear from Dolly, who is a lesbian refugee from Uganda, living in Nairobi and getting by. So we're going to go to that. And who's the guy with the sexy British accent? And do you want to get married and move to Saskatchewan?
Hi, this is Dali, a queer refugee living in Nairobi, Kenya. I've been here for now, it's coming to 5 years. I left my country because of the homophobia that surrounded me, from the schools I attended to family, which was basically fueled by the government when they passed the Kill the Gay Bill, which was later changed to the Anti-Homosexuality Act, whereby homosexuals were supposed to be killed. That's why I left to come to Kenya, because it was the farthest and the nearest I could get. What gives me hope is the queer refugee community, because we show up for each other, and I believe that when we stick together, our voices can be heard.
Thank you, Dolly. Very moving. We have breaking news right now. This is major. We're all beaming here behind the scenes at Orem. Our friend, Mr. Steve Dumas, who he's very modest, and he embarrasses easy, but he is a world famous architect, a legend. He has just plunked down, donated $1,500, $1,500. That is an enormous amount of money. It goes to such good. We're quelling, our hearts are swollen. We thank you. We have such gratitude. That is a call to arms that you guys plunk down. Make a donation. We want to, oh my God, I sound like a televangelist. We want to get to 15,000. We really want to help these people. It's that grassroots and it's that basic. That people, their lives will be saved. They will get out of their persecution, because it's really about persecution. You heard Ninos talk about ISIS and things like that, and those kind of anti-homosexual laws. So long-winded, please donate. Thank you, Steve Dumas, for your extraordinarily generous donation. Thank you. And now I am going to throw it back to, I think, Steve Roth, Executive Director of Orem, who has been such an instrumental part of tonight's show and instrumental in saving lives and helping people. He's here, and Steve has a special guest. So I think now, Steve, you're going to take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kojo. And thank you, Steve Dumas, for that incredible contribution. We love you. So yeah, I'm really thrilled to introduce our next guest, Ola Osaze. A couple months ago, sent me an email and he said, hey, Steve, I heard this really dynamic speaker. He had some great things to say, and he was really inspiring, and you should try to get in touch with him. And I always do what Rich tells me to do, and I'm glad I did, because I reached out and I met, connected with Ola, who is the director of the Black LGBTQ+ Migrant Project, which is an organization that works at the intersection of racial justice and LGBT immigration here in the U.S. So hard to think of an organization whose work is more timely and kind of bridges and connects to what we have going on here right now in our country, along with the refugee issue. So I think Ola is with us. Hopefully you can turn on your camera and mic, and there's Ola. Hey, yeah. Ola, how's it going?
Hi, everyone.
Perfect. Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. We're super grateful you could join us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got to just hear from both the Kenya panel and from Dolly and Charles, some of the challenges that face LGBTQ refugees and asylum seekers as they're trying to reach a place like the U.S. I know you probably know a number of those challenges personally as a trans person from Nigeria. But now I'd like to talk a little bit about the experiences of LGBTQ refugees, and particularly Black migrants once they're in the U.S., because it sounds like, based on some of our conversations we've had recently, that it's not always just a bed of roses. And so, when we spoke, you talked a bit about BLMP's work to impact the criminalization of Black migrants. And so I wanted to ask you about that. My question is, how are Black migrants being criminalized here in the U.S.? What's fueling that? And how is your organization responding to it?
So those are great questions. And before I go into that, I just want to, given the moment that we are currently in the U.S., with the current Black Lives Matter uprisings and protests, I just want to honor and dedicate this moment to folks like Dominique and Ria, two Black trans women who were murdered last week. Tony McDade, a Black trans man who was shot dead by police in Florida. Oluwatoyin Salau, a Nigerian young woman who was murdered over the weekend. George Floyd, Rashad Brooks, and all the other Black folks that we've lost due to interpersonal and state violence, as well as the COVID pandemic. So I just wanted to bring them into the room, into the space, and honor them, honor their lives. So yeah, my name is Ola Osaze. I'm the director of BLMP, is the acronym we use for the Black LGBTQ Migrant Project. And just to give you a little bit about our mission, BLMP envisions a world where no one is forced to give up their homeland, where all Black, all Black LGBTQ plus people are free and liberated. We build and center the power of Black, queer, and trans migrants to ensure the liberation of all Black people through community building, political education, creating access to direct services, and organizing across borders. So, our work basically falls into two categories. And it's, at one end, it's really shaping national, as far as in the US, shaping national and local efforts to resist enforcement, detention, and deportation through a criminal justice and immigrant rights movement. And on the other end, it's also about transforming migrant narratives here in the US to center Black and LGBTQ plus experiences and identities. So that's, BLMP in a nutshell. And really, our work in this moment is focused on abolishing ICE and defunding and dismantling police, which are, these are structures that criminalize our communities, cage us, and kill Black folks who are native born and migrants. So I just wanted to just start with that. And I think it's important to also just, give a bit more context as to just how it is that many of us are forced to give up our homeland and end up here in the US. And, just thinking about the ways in which LGBTQ folks on the continent, in Nigeria and Uganda, in Kenya, in various parts of the continent, various parts of the world, how LGBTQ folks' identities and experiences are criminalized. I know on the continent, in Nigeria specifically, many of the laws that exist now that criminalize Black, queer, and trans folks come from the British penal codes that colonized us. And those penal codes were grandfathered and, and adopted into what we see today. So my main point is that homophobia and transphobia really was brought to Africa, by our colonizers. This was not something that we, had before we were colonized. I just wanted to kind of put that in context, that the realities that many queer and trans folks are facing, in various parts of Africa, for example, is as a result of the history and legacy of colonization. And so, the criminalization that folks are facing on the continent, as well as the deep economic violence due to U.S. And other kind of foreign powers, foreign policy, mean that many of us are forced to give up our homelands and end up in places like the U.S., where we have to contend with the fact that we are Black, and the legacy of colonization here in the U.S., the legacy of slavery here in the U.S. Has meant that Black folks even today are still having to contend with that, right? And so as Black migrants here in the US, we're dealing with the anti-Black racism. We're dealing with the police violence that people are, protesting and, and fighting for dismantling the police and so forth. We're dealing with that. We're also dealing with, the immigration side of enforcement as well. And that looks like, ICE in our lives. That looks like, when we are arrested for various charges that, we're then kind of taken from police to ICE and then to detention. And so it's like this double punishment that, quote unquote, that we experience. In addition to that, we're dealing with here in the US, but also the criminalization and the violence as a result of being LGBTQ. So, the current Trump administration, Trump ran on a very vehement anti-LGBTQ platform. Ever since he got into office, he has worked diligently to undo many of the policies that we were able to create during Obama's time. And so, everything that you see Trump fighting for, whether it's to take away our rights as far as like not facing discrimination in the workplace, whether it's to take away our rights to receive healthcare, to receive the very healthcare that can save our lives, these whether it's the right to actually being able to, like, if we're houseless or homeless, seek shelter. These are all, you know, things that the Trump administration is working to create barriers around for us. And so this is the other layer of criminalization that we're facing. And so, you know, it's and I actually just want to read a quote, if that's okay. And the context for this quote is, we currently have a Freedom School, which is a space that's bringing together Black trans women and Black trans femmes who are migrant and native born to do some further learning about why is it that we are facing so much violence here in the US. And so this Freedom School is helping, is a space for folks to kind of contend with that reality. And this quote I want to read actually is from one of the women who's part of the Freedom School. Her name is Brittany. She is a trans woman, a Black trans woman from Honduras, who was part of the migrant caravan, was detained, and in detention, of course, experienced all sort of atrocities as a trans woman. You know, she was able to get out and is still facing you know, things from houselessness to, you know, to, you know, poverty, to, you know, all these other realities. And this is a quote, this is what she says in terms of her life. Being a Black trans woman is not easy. You have to fight two wars: gender discrimination and race discrimination. Race and being trans are the main reasons we are treated without dignity, and that is not a good thing. Racism and transphobia as forms of oppression do not act separately. They feed and empower each other. So just to give you a snapshot in terms of like what our communities are currently facing in this moment.
That's incredible, Ola, and I think that really it sums it up. And there's a lot to unpack there. And I wish we had more time, because I think we could go on for another hour here. We are already over time, unfortunately, for the show. So can I ask you to join us again another time so we can continue the conversation? Because like I said, I think we really got just started here, and I think there's so much more to discuss.
Definitely. And thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And for anyone that's interested in more information or to support BLMP's work, we'll post their website in the chat. And I'll turn it back over to Stephen. As he said, we're in the final stages of the show here. Thanks again, Ola.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Finally, we're going to have a song to close out the evening. We have a dynamic duo of Amy Armstrong and Fernando Gonzalez. I don't know if I'm giving away any secrets, but they're going to sing a song. I believe it's called Rise Up, and it really sums up what we're about tonight. We feel good about this, with all of the problems in the world, that we are rising up, that we are having a moment in time, that we can help people, that there are great Supreme Court decisions. So here, let's take it away, Amy and Fernando.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amy.
Hello, my name is Fernando Gonzalez.
And we are Duo Dorado.
And we are so happy to be part of this live stream.
Yes. We love ORAM, and we just want to say we're going to do this song because ORAM helps to empower LGBTQ refugees. And we hope this song, Rise Up, will help to empower them as well. Thank you guys so much. You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round. And you can't find the fighter, but I see it you, and we gon' walk it out. And mountains, we gon' walk it out. And mountains, and I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you. silence isn't quiet. It feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise you'll take the world to its feet and move mountains, bring the world to its feet and move mountains. And I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll say times again. And I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. Oh, we'll rise up, high like the waves. We'll rise up, in spite of the ache. We'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, we'll rise up. Thank you, guys. We love you. We love you from Puerto Vallarta.
Puerto Vallarta, that sounds really nice right now. Thank you, Amy and Fernando. Thank you to everybody who participated. I thought this was incredible. ORAM's virtual gala for Pride and for World Refugee. That's the timing. We ask you please donate and help, and thank you for watching. We're bringing on Steve Roth, my twin brother. Steve, kudos. And I think you educated a lot of people tonight. I think you moved a lot of people tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you had a huge role in that, and I don't know about you, but I've got goosebumps between that gorgeous song and just the love that we felt tonight. I think having so many people so engaged and everyone that we got to feature in the program it's inspiring and a beautiful note to end on. And so I just want to well, first of all, thank all of you out there who are still listening and who stuck with us. And thank you to so many of you who supported our work. I'm thrilled to announce that we raised $16,220 tonight. We exceeded our goal. And thank you. We're gonna, that's gonna help us continue our work. It's gonna help us support some of the partners you saw tonight, and most importantly, the refugees on the ground. So thank you for that. It's not too late to make a contribution if you still feel so inclined. I want to thank all of our amazing guest speakers and performers. They're really the heart and soul of the work that we do. A huge shout out to DJ Alex in Toronto, Canada, who's been the tech mastermind and wizard behind everything you've seen tonight and got us through technical difficulties and everything else. This is no small task, one of these shows. To our Berkeley fellow, Santiago Vasquez, who's been an incredible part of the team and has some mad video and communication skills. To our ORAM comms coordinator, Bella Stevens, who was really the taskmaster that kept us all moving on this. Really amazing. And finally, a huge shout out, much love to you, Kojo, a dear friend, and you still got a baby, very talented, you know, red carpet, celebrity interviewer, the whole 9 yards, and we're really lucky. I consider myself really blessed to have you as a friend. So thank you all. This evening is really dedicated to all the brave LGBTQ refugees out there that we serve, that we do this work for. Thank you all for being a part of this journey in so many ways, and yeah, it's an honor. Have a great evening, and hope we do this again soon. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Good night. Thank you. Thank you, Steve Roth. Thank you. Good night.